Hello. Welcome to a new developer live stream with Dennis and me. Dennis, just do a quick introduction because we might have people new from Mixer that don't know who you are.
Hi, I'm Dennis. I'm the lead designer of Showdown, and today we're going to talk about content update 2.2.
Yeah, new stuff. And my name is Janneke. I'm the community manager for Hunt. And yeah, we got a lot of stuff to talk about again today. What do we see right now? Some people might already notice, obviously, as the summary screen.
That's the summary screen. This is basically what you see right now in the game when you finish a mission. Sometimes, hopefully, with a bit more stuff that actually happened there. Like you're not dying. So what we're gonna do with 2.2 is we're gonna rework that mission screen a little bit. Like the summary will be a bit more interesting. So we thought about maybe adding certain accolades to it. What you can see on the next screen is basically how this will look like. So rather than giving you a list of details, like you killed 25 of the grunts, for example, you killed 4 players, etc., just as a listed view and kind of is a bit meaningless, what we will do is we kind of give you these action cards as they come in. They give you a bit more of an like appreciation, acknowledgement of what you actually achieved.
It looks pretty.
It looks pretty. They also like kind of have a prioritization system running in the background. So like the more important, really cool events, they have a higher priority. Therefore, they're more likely to show up. There's like these 5 slots you have. One of them always being like the highest mission relevant achievement you kind of got from this, and the other ones more tertiary ones. Like in this particular case, because it was a mission you kind of failed on, like as you can see, the contract status is failed. You didn't kill the butcher, you didn't finish the mission, just killed 4 monsters, you died in the end, but hey, you found a clue.
One clue. Yeah.
So not very successful round, but it's a kind of like breaks down the big beats of what happened.
Yes. And then we have, obviously, this is the old summary screen for when you did a good job. Yeah. But how does it look in the new screen?
So, for example, here we can see that right in the center we have the contract status success. So we kind of went for the butcher. You located a lair. You found 3 clues for him. In addition, what the system deemed very important to show you is like you still killed like 13 enemies, and you extracted successfully from the mission. Like you made like a total of 475, as you can see on the right side. Like so the low part hasn't changed that much, but it gives you overall just a better overview of what happened. We even have like I think a small video which shows the current bird.
Yeah. Do we want to take a look at it?
Just have a look at it quickly. I mean, this is all a bit work in progress still, but by the time this hits the test servers, we will have that working and nicely displaying.
I mean, I'm giving spoilers now. No! Why is it taking so long? Don't show me spoilers. Okay, yeah.
So this is how it looked like. It's like the familiar screen. It kind of does the calculation of things you've done. But what you see now is like once in a while, these very important highlight events, they're kind of being put into the rotation. You locate the layer. And when the calculation runs through, I mean, this is obviously a long mission, so it kind of takes time. We're still playing with the timings. We'll make this a little bit faster overall, like the way it adds up and just the calculation of it. But what you will see...
I do really like the effect when the little card drops. It's like the... Looks nice.
And then as it continues to calculate, obviously very successful mission, lots of things happened here. So bear with us for a second.
We've done a lot. This person has killed a lot of things.
And we see like up to these like 5 cards come in with your contract status success at the end, and it kind of gives you this nice overview. You can then, as you can see at the very bottom of it, it's kind of a little bit hidden behind the video timeline thingy. You can see the show mission details, which will be in a similar way and revealing also with small cards. I think
like this
yeah,
you
can have a quick look.
Okay. We'll just have a quick look. Yeah, I know there were some things that are not finished. Like
this is if you would then press on the details screen. Obviously, this will look a little bit differently. The formatting isn't done yet, but you see like all of the things breaking down further. Like first clue found, second clue found. You see a more total breakdown of what happens. We're still working on that part, like how this kind of like is presented in a nice way. So far we've been focusing on the big ones, but with 2.2, a rework of the summaries could just give you a bit more ways of kind of like celebrating and acknowledging what you did in the game.
And someone asked where the kills will be displayed here as well. Just with this example, we have it with the monster focus of the kills. So they will be there. No worries for you guys.
Right, so that's the first thing. Now we go back to the presentation. Tease.
Yes. Nobody saw anything. Okay, so we have new traits. We have new traits. We have the decoy supply crate. What does this do, Dennis?
So we do have decoys in the game. And as you might have seen through a little bit of a tease a second ago, there might be more different decoys coming. We'll talk about it in a minute. Decoy supply trait is a very basic trait. I think it only costs like 1 upgrade point, so very, very basic, and allows you to just restock your decoys from ammo boxes. Why exactly ammo boxes is something we're going to talk about in a second.
Okay. I mean, you know, another trade, the pitcher trade.
Yeah, as a pitcher trade, as you can already see, it involves somehow pitching and throwing something. So in this one, what we're doing with 2.2 is we're gonna pulling back slightly on the throw ranges for explosives. So like you've seen sometimes the decoys very excessively reaching out like over like 30, 35 meters. We're pulling slightly back, not much, and therefore creating room for the pitcher trait, which will be a little bit more than is currently on the live version. Yeah. So that if you want to equip that trait, you will become a better throw with explosives.
Yeah, that's right. And then we have another trait, Gator Legs. I think this is a trait a lot of people will be happy with, especially people who will have to eventually run away from any nasty tentacles eventually.
If we ever find those things like in this form, you never know.
I don't know.
So Gator Legs, what does it do? We have already a trait about the movement, which is Greyhound. Greyhound works on land. So what Greyhound does is, or just for people who might not be fully aware of it, is you will be able to sprint for a longer duration before your stamina runs out, like making your range is a little bit longer, better. Yeah. You can traverse easier. So what we do with Gator Legs is we introduce the same thing now for water. So as you sprint through water, you can sprint for a longer time before tiring. It doesn't do anything with the speeds, just like Greyhound also doesn't change your running speeds, etc.
5 times as fast.
But you just have more range total, and it's less cumbersome. One important thing to talk about here as well is like it's a change we introduced in the last patch already. By default, we increased the players' like distance they can sprint before running out. So with the last patch, and not everybody might be aware of that because it's been a bit of an under the hood type of change. It wasn't changelog, but we didn't really talk much about it. Is that by default, since 2.1, players would get what Greyhound was giving them by default. So didn't need Greyhound anymore for that. Yeah. We just felt that without Greyhound, it was kind of it felt just a bit like too restrictive. You were tiring too quickly, and it kind of made the trade an auto buy. So instead, we kind of push we push Greyhound a little bit further out. But you can also just do the same thing.
Do we have a distance of like?
It's basically it's a percentage thing. Like the tick rate changed from I think 5 to 3 stamina points per tick that goes down. Like we can talk about the details maybe more in the Q&A session later. I don't have the numbers exactly here, but overall it gives you a lot more range of how far you can just traverse at the same time someone else would need to quickly go down to jog or catch the breath and then it continues.
I like how someone says we can spawn north now, no water fear. The conduit trait, very interesting art as usual. I really love the art style of the
art style is awesome. Ina's doing an excellent job in that.
Oh, I really want just paintings of all the traits in my house. So what does the conduit trait do?
So conduit trait, as you can see, this looks like almost like a clue below the dude there where it's coming out of. A conduit is basically a way of players getting some health back whenever they use a clue. So if you have that equipped, you get I think like 50 health points back. So if you were in a fight around a clue, etc., you might just be attacked, etc. By just interacting successfully with a clue, you will get a bit of health back. It's not like a full replenish, it's not like the banishing does,
but it's like
for example.
A small vitality shot.
Exactly. You don't get any chunks back or anything like that, like what banishing does. It's really just a quick of a top up.
Yeah, I personally really like this trait. It's a very, I don't know, especially because then you can think like, okay, do I take the trait right now? And it makes it going for a like clue during a fight pretty like tempting. But I'm very curious to see how this will be used. And I definitely think this is a trait that a lot of people will go for. At least I personally think I would always take the trait.
It's something which gives you like this additional health. So like normally you just always need to either use one of your precious consumables, or you need to find that, or be lucky to find that ammo supply. Like here you got it basically on the main path.
Okay, then we go to the explosive crossbow.
Yeah, you've seen that probably already in our E3 footage.
Yeah.
So big concerns. Oh no, they're adding a new tube to the game. It's new tubing everywhere. So first thing with this one, it's not a one-hit kill weapon. The idea is it's a very lightweight explosive, parts of a dynamite stick, and it allows you to blow up like an armored in one shot. Blows up in I think was it a meathead in 2 shots.
2 shots, yeah.
But it does not blow up a player even if you directly hit him. It does like I think 125 damage. So it's always some health left, and obviously slow firing weapon. the range is less than on the normal crossbow because it's got a heavier bolt,
How
heavier
much?
projectile. I think it's like by a third or so.
Okay.
So this will take some compensation, like from the elevation, and kind of like aim up in order to hit.
And just like the poison crossbow, you cannot retrieve these arrows.
Exactly. Those are one-offs. I think the weapon comes with 1 in a weapon and 5 extra, and that's the amount of shots you have in a mission. Except for one particular thing, which we're going to talk about in a second. Which before we do that, because we don't have a slide for it, but we're going to talk about like that, is the changes we did to looting. So last patch, last update, what we introduced was the ability to loot players.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, there were a couple dominant strategies emerging. We knew that this was just the first step of this feature, and problems we encountered were that people would just instantly fill up their ammunition quickly and then go to a corpse, and then they would guaranteed get their supply back. Like, for example, their big dynamite bundle, their vitality shots, etc. We didn't really want that to go on like that. So what we did is we kind of reworked, iterated on the looting feature. So what it does right now is it has more options, more different things you can get from a loot. So the first thing we did is, by default, you will get a bit of money.
How much money?
50 gold or dollars in our case. So it's not that much, it's just a little bit. This is just a small amount, and this is only if there's nothing else to be given. So I can quickly run you down the numbers. I've written them down here. So
there are some
there's like a 40% chance to getting ammunition back. There is a 20% chance to get a consumable back. There was like 25 before. There is also a 20% chance now to restock ammo on a tool. So here's your chance to get your
bolts back.
For example, the throwing knives, or for example the med kit, etc. First aid kit. So it's
Will
not
you
just
get one like the full first aid kit?
It's a full refill of that particular slot.
That's really nice.
And then we have between those 80% that we have already talked about, we have 20%, which is different types of money. So by default, fallback is always going to be 50, but we do have a 1% chance to give you 500, 1% chance for 200, and a 5% chance for 100.
Especially as solo players, I think getting the extra money will definitely be. And the money, do you take that out every time, even if you die, or do you?
That's the thing. It lives on you, and you need to kind of extract it.
So it's like a bounty, like a personal bounty.
So if you die in a mission, just like with other stuff, it's gone. It's not a guaranteed money income. You still need to kind of work for it, but it's a nice incentive. And if you have this 1% chance of actually getting the 500, I mean, you're gonna think how much you're gonna like. Press on or
pretty big
like
reward already.
Exactly. It spices things up a little bit, and it makes sure that like we prevent situations where people get in this automatic cycle. For example, the nitro rifle, to always get a bullet back. There's a chance to do so. It's a high chance of 40% still, but it is not an automatic. So which means you bleed much more ammo on those precious weapons. And there's one more thing with the ammo. I already give it away. You get special ammunition back from that, not just from the nitro, but also, for example, from the crossbows, which gives you a small chance that if you fire a crossbow, if you fire even an explosive crossbow, you might get a projectile back. Again, it's not guaranteed, but you can't get that from any of the boxes, so this is the only way of getting them.
We've made our game a gotcha. No. Okay, shall we continue to the next thing? So we have a new pistol.
Oh, that looks very much like a familiar pistol we have. So
it's 895 officer.
It's basically a variant of a pistol we have, and this is a double action version. So while the normal revolvers actually we have in the game are single action weapons, so you kind of need to cock the hammer every time after you fire the shot. This one is a double action, which means the rate of fire is much more substantial. Obviously, the accuracy isn't just as high because there's more pressure as you kind of fire it, because you need to, with the pull of the trigger, kind of like fight against the spring. So it's a less accurate weapon than the normal single action revolvers, but it is basically a nice backup if you don't have fanning, for example. So it's your box standard, and again, it's just as a double action, which means the hammer is always in the back position.
A good starting pistol.
Exactly.
Where does it come in the bloodline?
I think it's really early now. I can't exactly say where, because we're still putting together the change log with all the details, so this might even change a little bit until we go on the test server.
Makes sense.
But this is supposed to be a weapon that people can get very cheaply, very quickly early in the game, as a substitute for always having to, for example, pick up fanning to make a weapon viable.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, then we have the Hellfire Bomb.
Yeah, so this is the first of a number of explosive changes. What is a Hellfire Bomb? So we have our Fire Bomb. It's like basically Molotov cocktail, except that we can't name it like that because the guy was just barely born. So what makes it different between or to the regular bomb? So where we have the normal bomb just chattering, putting the alcohol, whatever it is, inside, splitting it over the area, igniting it, and burning for a long time. The Hellfire bomb basically just like burns all of that fuel from the initial. Think of it like a Michael Bay Hollywood explosion, right? Like a big gasoline fireball.
Nice.
Now, what it means is that it only burns on the ground for 5 seconds, which means you can't really use that to actually like deny an area for some time or burn corpses reliably, because the fire might go out very quickly. But this one just gives you a large radius. I think we're talking about, I think it's like 8 or 10 meters. So this is very close to like a big dynamite bundle.
It's pretty big.
Also, like the firebomb effect is very similar to that one, and just sets things on fire. So if you throw this like in a group of grunts, like, they basically go up in flames. So this is again just a variety of an existing item, and will be very interesting to see how people like that or not.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what people are thinking to think about it. And then we have the sticky bomb.
Yes.
Also something you might have seen if you watched the E3 trailer. You can now, I mean, as the name says it, stick it onto something.
Yes. So we do have, since we introduced the crossbows, our sticky system. Yay!
Yeah.
Which means we can actually stick projectiles to things and do things without being creative about it. Now, the sticky bomb is, as you might imagine, exactly that. It's a bomb that sticks. So you can throw it at enemies, you can throw it at players, and after, I think it's an 8-second fuse, so it's double the time of a normal dynamite fuse, but obviously you can kind of keep it holding in your hands before you throw it to kind of reduce that, prime it. It will blow up on the guy. Now, what's interesting is systemically, what happens with if a player gets hit by a throwing knife or by a crossbow bolt or by a sticky bomb is he starts bleeding because it kind of sticks and it's painful. Now, if he doesn't die from that and he just bandages, the moment he stops the bandage is when all of these stuck items fall off. So the one way to kind of survive the sticky bomb is to quickly bandage and hope the guy didn't prime it. We actually had this in playtesting a couple of times where people got one stuck at them and then they run away, quickly bandaged, got around the corner, and the thing detonated on the ground where it fell off. So there's a way to counter it, but obviously, like if someone throws a regular dynamite at you and he primes it like 3 seconds, so there's almost nothing you can do, which is just the way it is.
Someone had a good question. So does it stick to anything, even cement walls? What does it stick to?
Yeah, it sticks to, at the moment, everything, except for obviously water, that is, and I think metal.
Okay.
So metal, I think we have an exclusion for, so it kind of falls off that. Similar to what we do with the knives and the crossbow bolts, but even like a stone wall, etc., it kind of like attaches itself to.
Okay, and someone also asked, can I use it as melee?
You can, however, we have at the moment a guideline we follow from the animation side, which is that with tools that are not knives, we actually use the fist as a melee weapon, like to kind of like not break whatever you're holding. So for this one, at the moment, you are using the fist to strike. You kind of like hold the pressure, then just kind of punch instead.
Okay.
We might change it at a later time. At the moment, it's reusing existing animations we have on some of the other explosives. That's the easiest way for us to implement this also.
Makes sense. And then we have the Chaos Bomb.
Yeah, it looks very much like a sticky bomb. So how do they differ? So the sticky bomb is an explosive. Maybe one thing to say about the sticky bomb still is that it has a shorter radius, but it has more bang, which means the damage is much higher. So we kind of rebalanced our explosives a little bit along with that to make room for them. And one of the changes is that the big dynamite bundle and the dynamite bundle just went a little bit higher up in damage, which doesn't really matter too much because they are like the big one is a one-hit kill on the boss anyways. But with a damage bleed off over distance just means that players on average will just take a little bit more damage from them. Like you need to imagine the explosive curve a little bit more like it. It's very deadly in the center, but it falls off very quickly and then goes on for a long time with like lower damage. So you actually need to be in a very, very close range. Now for the Chaos Bomb, that range is even shorter, but the damage is a bit more compacted. So it's like it's much, much more powerful there.
And how would this level with, like, for example, the dynamite stick?
At the moment, I think it's double the damage of a dynamite stick.
Okay, double the damage.
Yeah. So if you stick this to a meathead, he is dead.
Sounds good.
Yep. So then the Chaos Bomb, which is the actual thing here on the screen. Now this doesn't really qualify as an explosive per se. This is a distraction device. So imagine there's lots of blank fire shells inside. and you don't quite know whether it's going to be shotgun shells, if it's bullets, etc. You prime it, you throw it again, 8 seconds on fuse time. If it goes up for 20-30 seconds, it just basically simulates a firefight. You will hear all sorts of gunshot sounds, shotguns. The timing is kind of random. The picking of the sounds is random. AI will be attracted to it, so you can kind of use it to kind of make them converge in one spot, and then maybe you just kill them there. Or
and what if you already aggroed a certain grunts or other AI? Does it diverge to where that sound goes from?
At the moment, I don't think it does. Would be lying if I could say for sure. I don't think it does, because the play always is the highest priority for grunt. If you can see, but if you just trigger them, so if you stir them up a little bit and you threw it, then there would be new stimuli they would go for. But line of sight to the target, which with the grunts means very close range, anyways, to the player, is one of the highest priorities we have. But what this can be used for is you kind of like throw it on the other side of a compound. The guys maybe sitting inside doing the banishing. They think there's a firefight in this particular direction, and you can use that as a distraction, as a diversion to go in.
Especially nice with the picture trait to throw it the further distance.
It's basically a bit more of like a tactical option, and you can use it to clean up a space. You can clear people away from clues, or you can mess with players.
Yeah, sounds good. The blank fire decoys.
Yeah, that's basically the Chaos Bomb's little cousin. So what this does is basically it simulates what the Chaos Bomb is doing over a long time with multiple shots, just as an individual. So basically you have decoys like normal, but in this case they're almost like firecrackers. So you throw them and they generate a random fire sound from a weapon. That can mean I just throw one, and then maybe he thinks like I'm actually having a friend with me, because like I'm pinned down behind the tree, and just throw one like 10 meters to my side, and with a bit of luck maybe they're now looking at that direction rather than at me. So I can use it tactically. I can use it against with AI to distract them, some of the normal decoys. The cost here being obviously that there's less of them. Like you only have half the capacity than a normal decoy.
But you can restock.
Exactly. So that's where we go back full circle on the new trait, the decoy resupply trait, which allows you to, in general, if you carry decoys, either the normal decoys or the blank fire decoys with you as tools in an ammo box, you can kind of restock on them and you get a few back.
Yeah, sounds. I like because especially after we just had sort of like the stealth patch where it was a lot of silence weapons, a lot of like sneaking. We now are getting the from stealth to Michael Bay. But I do think it's nice how we have different options and like way to distract. Because I think in general, like especially if you play stealthy, having these decoys and chaos bombs to distract other players help a lot.
Yes.
Especially I think also if you play alone too.
Like I'm not sure. I mean, the decoys is a bit of a very special tool. It's not something that you see in widespread use. But if you really take a moment and play with them, like if you, for example, got Frontier Man and you have this 4th tool slot and you really want to try them out, they can be saving lives. Like there's been situations where you sit in a compound, you kind of pin down, and you just throw one at the chicken coop like on the other side and trigger them with a normal decoys even. And now with this one, you don't even need anything to alert. You can actually just hope that the actual shot will be a distraction enough.
Okay, I'm very interested to see how that goes.
New weapons.
Yeah, new weapons. We have a Winfield aperture
sight. So basically what we do with this one is we introduce a Winfield. In this case, it's the regular Winfield, so the 15 round one.
Yes.
And we put our, let's call it the lowest quality scope we have on it. So you can see there right sitting behind the hammer, it's a small additional sight. It's what people refer to as a peep sight. Technically, it's an aperture sight.
You might know it from your favorite weapon, the nitro.
Exactly. So what it does is, and this might also explain a little bit finally why, for example, the nitro still has that zoom, because the nitro is technically always coming with an aperture sight. It gives you a bit more zoom, similar to what the zoom was on Iron Sights a couple patches ago, straight across the board. However, it's less convenient to use. So you kind of trade off some of the visibility while zoomed in, but you get a bit easier time of actually picking out heads, seeing people behind cover, etc. We have a couple of things, screenshots, so you can see how it looks in-game.
Yeah, I'm sorry this is a small screenshot, but this is obviously your regular Winfield, and this is with the nitro, so you can see the face, the head.
Yeah, just it basically gives you a bit of, but obviously the moment you want to like move around, you see also there's blur around it, like with the scopes.
Yeah.
So it's harder to make out details. You can't just use the zoom that comes with the weapon just as a like a magnification glass, basically. But it gives you a chance that if you know where the guy is, primarily if he's static, you can have an easier time shooting, but you will be at a disadvantage if the guy's moving around a lot.
Exactly. So yeah.
Compared to normal iron
Regular.
sights.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
the image, but you get the point. You can see his head beautifully.
I mean, again, once this will be in the tester, we ask people just play with it and give us some feedback on it, and we might pull back or actually increase the zoom level of it, but it would need to be consistent with something else.
Okay.
Which is the nitro.
Who would have thought that we would do something about this?
Yeah.
So,
and no, we're not taking it out. Sorry.
We're taking the nitro. No.
So what we're doing with the nitro as a set of ongoing changes ever and ever again. Maybe just let's recap what we just did with it. So there were a couple of bugs we introduced with the last 2.1 update, 2.0 update,
sorry, yeah.
And in 2.1. Which just went live, we actually addressed them. So what does the nitro play like on live at the moment? So what can it do? It is no longer, and was not meant to be, that was because of that bug we mentioned before in the last stream, it is no longer killing people up to 80 meters straight again, no matter where you hit them. So what the nitro does now is, it's against the chest, against the upper torso area, it still insta-kills you in one hit, because it's an elephant rifle, up to 50 meters. However, it only does arm kills up to 20 meters, so much shorter range, and it never ever kills you with a leg shot. So that's changes that we've already introduced. They're already on live, and we're still evaluating what the impact of those changes is. So that's an important thing. As you've seen, we've been doing weapon balancing ongoingly for all of the patches. The problem is that very often we need to see how these changes kind of affect the game. We need to look at the stats, we need to play, we need to talk to people and see if they're having the desired effects, if we need to push them further, or if we went overhead and actually need to pull back on some changes. So this is an ongoing thing. Keep in mind, early access game. The balancing part is something we are working with the community on actually doing, and getting the feedback on.
A question that we're going to answer in a second. Are you adding the people blur to the nitro?
Surprise!
Ta-da!
We do!
We do.
So this is basically for consistency also
obviously
a way for us to make sure that the nitro, as part of being a weapon with a aperture sight, with a people sight, to have the same drawbacks as the new Winfield version of it would have. It is a different sight, but it has the same functionality behind it, and that means it's supposed to be giving you a hard time against moving targets, but it's supposed to be giving you a better time if you want to pick out a dude sitting somewhere or a grunt patrolling somewhere or whatever you want to use it on. Obviously, it's going to overkill against the grunt. There's an additional change we're doing for the nitro that we had in the pipeline for quite some time, which is a longer reload time. So we're not doing many changes right now otherwise to the nitro, because we're still observing what the last set of changes are doing. But one thing we're going to add, besides adding the blur here on the on the sides, is that the reload takes a little bit longer. It's like a very massive .700 caliber nitro round you have to put out and back in. That thing is just massive. And it's not as easy as quickly just as pulling out like a shotgun shell. And so we're gonna put some artificial time delay in there, just make sure that the time between the two shots, so you can always set out, is just a little bit longer.
It's longer, yeah. And then obviously after that, we're going to reevaluate again, see how people like the changes. Obviously,
as always,
now with the balances, and now we have to wait until we're done with the after this is live on the tests, and then we're going to look what you guys think about this. And obviously, a lot of people understand that it is not fun to be one shot by nitros left, right, and center. But it is what we're going to check out and see is how people are going to play with it at the moment, and then what we can further change. But know that we know it's important, and trust me, we've told many times that things have to change about the nitro.
And we do changes all the time, and we will do more changes if needed. Again, with balancing, it's a iterative process, and it's something we rely on feedback. We observe, we look at the stats. Very often people also just see their own picture, while we have to see the bigger picture, which means we also need to take a look at just what's the percentage of how many weapons are being used, are they being dominated, are they dominating, and then make changes based on that.
Exactly. I think that's pretty much it, what we have here.
Yep. That's all the new stuff we want to plan out releasing with update 2.2.
So we're just gonna go back all the way, just very quick. So we have the new accolades.
The accolades, yeah. At the moment, this is all a bit work in progress still, but by the time this goes on a test server in the next couple of days, there will be a bit more clarity on this.
And then, obviously, when you do it successfully, you have 3 new traits. Did I say 3? 4 new traits. My bad, I can count. The decoy supply trait, the pitcher trait to throw things further away, like bombs, and the gator legs trait to make you run faster or sprint faster in water.
Yep. Not faster, but longer.
Yeah, longer.
Yep.
And the conduit trait to get some health back when you take a clue. I personally really like this one. I think it would be a really, really good trait. We're getting the explosive arrows for the crossbow. Longer, or like they're non-retrievable. Not that many, and you might sometimes, maybe if you're lucky, get them back, but it's not very
from ammo looting from players, which is another improvement, the looting system. So again, you can get, besides the ammo, you can have a chance to get some money from the guy, or you can replenish the consumable, or you can replenish a tool. And
we got a new Nagant officer. It makes it faster.
Double action.
We have the Hellfire Bomb.
Big Michael Bay explosion.
Yeah, the Sticky Bomb, the Chaos Bomb to create gunfire. We have the Blank Fire decoys, so like a baby version of that. The Winfield Aperture.
Yeah, it was basically people.
I was actually waiting for you to say it again.
Aperture side.
And then we have, obviously, the nitro changes.
Yes.
Now, I know, and I've seen some people questions about where is the Water Devil, but that is still coming, just not.
The interesting part is, like, so if you take a look at the E3 trailer, there's like all the stuff we've revealed and everything you've seen at that trailer back then. There isn't really so much left.
Exactly.
Which means,
so don't be scared. It will come.
There's a high chance that maybe the one after 2.2 might have that.
So I just explained a little bit for the people that are new. Even we make the game Hunt Showdown, and we are showing one of our latest upcoming patches, or new upcoming patches. We now do and focus more on smaller patches, so that we can more consistently give you guys new content rather than wait longer in between. So like we decided to break it up in a few smaller patches, so you guys can enjoy new content as we go, test new things, test new changes.
And as always, all of these updates always come together. Bug fixes, they come with improvements to performance, serviceability, other things. So it's a rounded full package basically of changes.
But I can already tell there's lots of stuff coming up. Oh, there is one thing I wanted to talk about, because we did update our roadmap.
Ooh.
So I do want to take a look at it. So there are some things that we can, at least show that got added that you might have not seen, but I think it would be nice to know. So yeah, now on the 4 weeks we have the mission summary. That is the new thing that we just showed. Partner Inspector, that's something that comes later.
Yep.
Rank badges comes later. New and unique gear and gadgets.
Ongoing, yeah.
Yes, new traits, variations to the existing arsenal. So the Water Devil is still coming. We have a second pass of level loading time improvement, so that it becomes faster to load and level.
Get into the game faster.
Exactly. Yeah. Like we are, as you might like consider the fact that we have been working already making it faster. Obviously, it can go faster as we have currently, and we are actively working on it, as well as with the optimizations of the game. We have some audio fixes. I'm not sure if that was in this one, but we are gonna get like better, it's in here. Improvements to the menu music during matchmaking, map loading, and summary screen. I think that's also for this patch updates.
Yep. There's a couple of audio improvements in general.
Because people want more,
just
humming.
Like for example, interior gunfire reflections, and there was like an explosion audio pass. Like there's lots of like small little, like dozens of small little changes and optimizations under the hood. Not all of them get their fair attention in these streams, but all of them are just big steps forward for the game.
Exactly. And obviously, as a lot of people have asked for this, it's already coming to the short-term updates, which is the South American servers, because I know a lot of you guys have been talking about it, and we are actively working on getting them. We're also getting Steam trade cards, which are going to be really cool. And a reporting system, which I think is actually also something that is pretty important to talk about. I just want to mention it right now, that obviously you guys at the moment have been wanting to report people because they, team kill or whatever, they're just a bunch of beep, and and obviously we think it's important to have the ability to report them, so we're working on a code of conduct that is going to be on the website, so you guys can all see our new rules. But yeah, the South American servers are something that we're working hard on. Turkish localization comes with this patch as well. Or update. I keep saying patch now. It's an update.
It's all the same.
It's the same. But yeah, with 2.2, we're going to have some Turkish localization. It might not be applicable to everyone, but some people might like it. But yeah, know that we are working on quite some things. Obviously, I know that some people might have seen that eventually long term, we have added a new boss target. So, I mean, we can't share anything about this yet, obviously. But I know a lot of you are always very worried when one was coming. So we have it now on the road.
We still have all of the stuff we talked about.
So the new map, everything, like
new AI, new female characters, all of that stuff is on the path, and people are working on it. It's slotted in for specific times.
So yeah, solo mode, that's something that we're gonna get in the midterm, which is ours wasn't on our front end.
But we also get a custom lobby.
Yeah, well, I mean that's what I'm really happy about. Well, where is the events?
That's a good question. I don't know. You guys saw that this?
I know that there was something. Where is it?
So anyways, the solo event. This is something that's coming. As it will be under midterm, probably is somewhere midterm. We just can't find it right now because for whatever reason we're not.
Oh, okay.
There we go. We have
My bad. I for some reason thought it was under game mode.
And solo event basically means a solo only queue.
Yeah.
So that's it would be first we try that as an event, and then hopefully if it's successful we'll move into its being its own like constant presence in the game.
Yeah. And I have a feeling, I mean, this is just something that I just that gets beamed to me from the community, that you guys really want a solo only option to just play as a solo in a solo server. So I have a good feeling that that's going to stay for good once we try it with the event.
Probably talk about it a bit more in detail in one of the next streams. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and then we're going to also share more about the Nightmare event eventually. So
cool.
At the moment, we can't share too much, but we have been able to share you some of the things that we have coming up very soon. When about do you think we're going to be able to play this on the test server?
So at the moment, it's hard to commit because obviously with like I know the bugs, etc., doing some tuning on it. But I would expect it to be early mid next week.
Early mid next week. So
no promise, but very likely.
We are doing our best. So yeah, let's go to some questions. I know that Rick already sent me some questions here. Will hunter kills appear as a card in the new summary screen? Well, we kind of answered that.
Yes, and this is actually maybe something to talk about a bit more in detail for the new accolades, like the rework of our summary screen. A single kill of a hunter might not be a very special event. So the rating of just maybe like one kill versus maybe I wiped the server, I killed 5-6 players, would have a different priority rating, which means the higher the rating of such a card is, the higher the chance that it shows up as being one of the select cards. So obviously if you extract it from a mission with like 2 bounty tokens and you get that, that's a very high priority thing. That's something you're celebrating, like worthy to celebrate. Obviously that shows up, well, for example, it might get pushed out if it just killed one hunter. Maybe it was more important that you killed from a priority like maybe 60, 70 AI. That comes down to how the priorities are defined. Like finding a single clue, as you see on the screenshot at the moment, like might not be a very important event. In this case, it didn't even get a 5th event because the mission was kind of a bit of a failure anyways.
I mean,
but the system kind of chooses based on these priorities we define which of the cards we should really highlight. And show to you. And obviously a high amount of player kills has a high chance of showing up there compared to maybe some of the other events.
Exactly. Do the cards grant anything else, or is it just cosmetic?
At the moment, this is a visual feature, but we have some ideas and plans when it comes to the next update.
Ideas and plans?
Yeah,
for
crafting, as a potential way of having a specific income for the player based on these cards. There will be more details on that one. We can keep that very, very, very sketchy for now. But for now, it's basically the main intent of this feature is just make sure that the very dry lines we have in the moment become a bit more colorful. They become a bit more brushed up, and you actually just have a way to kind of acknowledge and see what the big beats of this mission were, like what went really well, what maybe didn't went so well. Before it was just you analyzing the numbers. But
it was just in the boring list, and now it looks cool while being awesome cards. Let me see. So the conduit trade. Will you be able to use the clues for health regen when it's blacked out on the map?
No, this is basically when you use the clue. When you normally can use a clue, the process of it, if it's already grayed out, so you come to an area where you no longer can get a clue, then obviously there's no effect. It's only for when you on your main mission objective path come across a clue, it allows you to top up a little bit of health. I think it's like 50. It's about the same as a small vitality shot does. It doesn't give you any chunks back again. It's really just a bit of a top up. So if you ran into a rough fight, maybe there was a meathead protecting that clue and just he hit you once, etc. There's a chance once you dealt with him, you can maybe just quickly get that back. Yep.
Does the explosive crossbow explode in contact, or is it timed?
It's an impact fuse, so it's on contact. But again, it's not a one-hit kill weapon. It's a weak explosive charge. The yield isn't that high, and it does roughly, if you directly hit a player, which is hard, it does 125 damage, I think, maximum.
Does the if you loot someone, can another person loot you and take the same money, or is that yours no matter what?
At the moment, the way looting works is that you never lose something if you're being looted. So imagine looting to be an invisible box sitting on top of you, which someone can get something from which is not yours. So you don't actually lose money, you don't actually lose ammunition. It's just basically a big lottery for the guy pressing the button to actually get something, right? It just gives you an incentive to go to the body and maybe see if there's anything you can like restock. Maybe you get like your bomb back, maybe you get some throwing knives back, maybe you just get some money. And with a very, very small chance, you maybe get even a lot of money.
What is the timer of the sticky bomb? I assume the same as like the dynamite and everything.
You mean the fuse time? The fuse time is double of the normal bomb. Where the normal dynamite fuses are like set to 4 seconds, so you can obviously just hold them in your hand and prime them and still kind of like play with that. Yeah. But for the sticky bomb and as well the chaos bomb, you have an 8-second fuse on them, which means you can just, for example, throw the chaos bomb and then just move away to a different area while this then starts to simulate the firefight. It gives you a bit more breathing room, kind of like to exploit this. Obviously, there's a risk with the sticky bomb. If you run into a boss arena and you throw that at the butcher and he might onto you, he might just come to you, and that might also just backfire even with the reduced radius.
Not happen to me ever.
There's another thing maybe worth mentioning. It's not one of the big topics of this update, but one thing we plan on doing for the boss arenas is that you can no longer sit inside a boss arena when the boss is alive. So just entering the boss arena will steer the boss up a little bit. He will be moving around that area. He might not have you as a target, but there's a very high chance that he will come like basically cross your path, and then obviously either you need to run away or you need to fight. So just sitting and camping inside a boss arena is not going to be possible anymore, at least not without people on the outside knowing that you're somewhere inside. We are even experimenting having the boss become a bit more active, so just not patrolling and moving slowly around or sitting at a particular spot if you are within a few meters of the arena. So as you get it like to the inner sanctum of the compound where the boss is, like the boss might already start become a bit more active, and that has a different reason than the camping. This is primarily to make it a little bit harder to do alpha strikes. With alpha strikes we mean just basically throw like a big dynamite bundle in and just hope to insta kill him. You need to work a little bit harder to pull that off. Or you can just use a sticky bomb.
Yeah. Can anyone loot the corpse? Both players of a team. Everyone, just the killer, one of the killer's team. So can one body be looted twice? I assume that's kind of where he's...
Every time you're downed, you can be looted right now. That's the rule set. Like
so two different people can loot one person.
Yeah, so like with ammo boxes in our game, like with a bounty, like with small ammo packs, etc., we have the rule of 2. consistent throughout the game, primarily coming from the idea that, well, with a team of 2, we don't want to have people rush in to be the guy who can grab it while the other guy doesn't have anything.
Yeah.
So we have 2 uses for all of these things, and the same is true for the looting. You can loot a player twice, but as a single person, you can only ever loot them once. So it just gives you and someone else, preferably obviously your partner, the chance to pick something up.
Can we have a burned corpse animation so we know the hunter is dead?
At the moment, we don't have any plans for that. We will see. I cannot say anything about that right now.
Okay. So for the South American service, that will probably be in Brazil, and hopefully they come very, very soon. That's more than I can say.
Who's asking, Benson? Or?
Let me see. Will clues give the players a peek of looking through the eyes of the boss and its location? We removed that, actually.
We had that, yeah. Actually, that was one of the prototypes we had long time ago. That was actually pretty cool. It had some technical issues. We kind of pulled it from that. So
also it took very long because you are very vulnerable if you're looking through the eyes, and it takes quite
exactly. So there was, I think, back then it was just a prototype. It's not in the game right now. At the moment we don't have any plans of actually putting it in. Just maybe interested in for the people to hear. We had this that on the 3rd clue you would be able to see through the target's eyes and therefore pinpoint where exactly he was. The rules of how we revealed enemies and the pacing of the game was a little bit differently back then, so it was a really nice, cool feature. We kind of pulled it out because technical problems with it, like to really bring it into quality. Maybe at one point we bring it back. Maybe there will be other features which do something similar. We never know.
So I saw some other people already asking, will there be a way to turn off the fire?
Haha, the fire.
This was gonna get asked.
Which is fair enough. So we plan on doing that, but we don't have a time frame for when this will be the case. Now, the biggest issue, I think we talked about this in one of the previous streams already, where it came up. The problem is consistency. So if we introduce, let's say, a water bucket or a CO2 bomb, which kind of sucks the air out of an area and then kind of like drowns or chokes the fire, we would expect that to be consistently used. Like, so if I do that on a campfire, or if I do it on a firebomb, if I do it on, let's say, a roof that is ablaze, you kind of would expect the same, because a player could just be stupid and fall down into a wildfire like a fireplace, and you have the same problem. And unless we technically have the option to kind of choke those out as well, it would be very inconsistent if it only would work for example, for a lantern, etc. So we want to work on that. We want to get something to the players to kind of like have a counter to being on fire. It's not immediately coming, so we still need to think about it a little bit.
Exactly, especially because it is difficult, like exactly like you say. You have to be able to lantern off every fire, because otherwise it makes no sense. I like how some people are very excited for a flamethrower now after we are talking about something to put down the fire or put out the fire. Let me see.
Maybe one point on the fire stuff. So as we are introducing yet another fire weapon with this update, the Hellfire Bomb, which is like this gasoline big blast type of explosion, that has one important difference to the normal fire bomb, which is it does not burn on the ground for so long. So you still have the same kind of like burning patch on the ground after the fireball is gone for like 5 seconds, but not for like the 20-30 seconds it was before with a normal bomb. What that means is this new explosive, while having a much bigger blast, a much bigger radius, isn't as well suited to burning players, because the fire dies out very quickly, which means they very likely don't burn to death from it.
Exactly. Someone asked, you mentioned load times, but are there plans for another general FPS performance passive? So it's short, midterm, long-term goal. So the reason we don't have these specific patches or updates anymore, we now do smaller patches, with each update being obviously more frequent with more changes. So for example, the stutters and freezes were a lot of issues that people had issues with or problems with. So we've been focusing on that. So every time during each thing we focus on bug fixes, but obviously, I mean, showing how it's not really a thing to show on the stream, like this is how we fix, this is now like this, and this is how it is. So we are continuously working on both the bug fixes, the optimization, and it is not directly a long, short, mid, term. It's an ongoing.
Every update we release always will have some sort of performance improvements, some bug fixes, crash bugs, or just in general performance problems like stalls, freezes, etc. Like as we find them, as we fix them, they're being rolled out with the next patches and updates.
And you can find them on the patch notes. Exactly.
Yep.
Let's see. Decoys, will they work in water? And what weapon sound do they imitate?
Okay, so I guess that refers to the blank fire decoys, because normal decoys do work on water, but the blank fire ones obviously don't, because it's wet. However, what do they do when they actually hit, for example, land or like a wall or whatever? So we've picked a number of weapons. I'm not going to go too much into which ones they are. It's something for the people to figure out for themselves. Don't expect that they do like big chains of aftermath sequences. I think
just nitro sounds, guys. Just the nitro.
So think of it more like a mix between the basic rifles, the basic pistols, the basic shotguns. It picks those kind of randomly, so you never quite know what to expect. If you throw, for example, the Chaos Bomb, which is the larger version of it, it does create these random explosions, gunfire, gunshots, like over a pretty long time.
Do they have
like 20 seconds.
The same range of weapon, like the same pool of weapons?
Yes, it's the same thing. So
it's just longer.
Yeah, and they're in a way designed, especially for the Chaos Bomb, that they do not have a predictable pattern. So so you won't hear like bam 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 bam. Bam, 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 bam. And then you kind of recognize that same pattern over and over again. There's random delays, there's random choosing. So as a fake mock firefight, they ideally always give you that uncertainty whether it's actually really someone they're shooting or if it is like a decoy.
Exactly. People, why have the Winfield aperture when you already have the Winfield marksman?
Haha, because the Winfield marksman, I knew that question would come. Winfield marksman is based on the Winfield's 1873C, which is the compact version, just 7 rounds as a tube magazine, while the peephole is based off the proper M1873, which is the 15-round version. So technically you get a less effective, I'm not going to say shittier because it's less its uses, but a less effective sight with a bit of zoom, but you do that with a weapon that has just in general a lot more ammunition and gives you the flexibility of the full-blown Winfield.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of people asking for a smoke bomb. Are we ever going to get a smoke bomb?
We want one. The problem is performance, just like the impact of particles, etc. So until we have a really good, satisfying solution to not just have everybody's frames tanked the moment, like 2 or 3 of those are being thrown around, it's a problem. Like we want to make sure that if we introduce something that it doesn't like drain down people's like frames. So first fix that, make sure we have a good foundation.
We care about your frames and your performance. And
then we see how we introduce those.
Let me see.
Frame bomb, yeah.
Yeah. I hear a lot of people. It's actually something, I don't know if we want to talk about this, but a lot of people ask if we're going to ever change the strafing, where people can just like strafe real fast.
Yes. So it's a topic we had internally for a long time already within the design team about like having momentum based like acceleration basically in there. It's not something we want to do. It's something we want to look into. To what extent we have to see. I mean, it still has to feel good. But there's a couple of topics to kind of talk about.
Yeah.
It's just the overall standard strafe speed we have in the game, which at the moment is pretty instant. Then again, we are also in general still a very slow moving game, so have to find a balance there. We don't want this to feel like very restrictive and clunky, but we're hopeful that we can find a good compromise there. On the other hand, we have certain weapons which still have a bit of clunkiness in them, the way they work. For example, if you have the Mosin Nagant or the Vetterli rifle, the bolt action.
Yeah, mainly means strafing as in like the walking, like
the basic walking. It's basically just like zigzagging around or just ducking, etc. And for that purpose, we want to look into this a little bit. But even some of the weapons have some of the clunkiness still in there, which we want to iron out so that you can kind of like cycle the bolt even without moving fast. Technically, right now you can do that, but it's very awkward. Like the only way you can after firing, for example, a shot with a bolt action rifle, is to actually quickly strafe out, like go behind cover, is if you let go of the aim button instantly after you fired a shot, then it zooms out and it only does the cycling on the hip post basically. And that allows you to just move freely. If you don't release the right mouse button in time, then it kind of zooms out for you, and then you're still stuck to the same speed there. And can't get away. So you can master it already. You can already get a fast experience, but it doesn't come very natural, and we want to make sure this is by default working a little better.
Let's see. What we'll click. Oh, but I already asked. Why does the fragmentation grenade go out when it comes in contact with water?
What was the question? I didn't see it.
Here, why does the fragment? Oh.
Go out, yeah, because it has an exposed fuse. So the frag grenade, the frag bomb, isn't really a hand grenade. Like, hand grenades were invented later. They don't exist at our timeline of 1895. So whatever these guys have built is makeshift. It's they just basically took a part of a dynamite stick, put like wooden stick around it somewhere, put a fuse somewhere in there, fragmentation belt around it. It's just very makeshift. But it is not a sealed, closed thing. Like, it's not like a grenade where you might actually have the fuse burn even if the whole thing is sitting in water. So there's one thing at the moment which is not supposed to be part of it. So we're gonna change that in one of the next updates, possibly even this one, 2.2. Is that you get the ticking removed. Already at the moment you have both the fuse and you have a ticking sound, and it's a mechanical thing. We don't really want to have the ticking part in there, but the fuse that is still there kind of gives away that this thing actually has an exposed fuse, and if you get in contact with water, it kind of goes out.
I hope you guys don't have a lot of background noise out of sudden because this AC started blowing. Calm down, calm down, calm down. Can we get achievements? Well, we're getting already Steam cards, so I definitely think we'll be getting some achievements in the future. Yeah,
Steam trading cards is on the list, and not too far in the future, and the rest will come eventually as well.
Yes. Are we gonna add pro? No, we do not have any plans to add a pro position. That's
correct.
Does the Chaos Bomb cause any damage?
What the Chaos Bomb does is similar to what the fuses or other things do. They have a bit of a, obviously because of the fuse, it's an open fire. Like if you throw it, like for example, on an oil patch, or you throw it against an explosive barrel, it can set those on fire and detonate them, but it doesn't really do damage himself. So you won't see like grunts, for example, just run towards the Chaos Bomb as they're being attracted to it and then start being set on fire. Like that's not the case with the fuses. If you're on the ground, you set around, it's the same thing there.
Also, I see some people ask questions about why we're not playing the game. We're constantly, or every Thursday, we try to do our developer live stream where we either inform you about new stuff or show you new stuff that's coming up, or go a bit more in depth about some things. Like we talked about Fog 2 weeks ago, and try to, teach you guys some things about the game. So Bloodline Prestige is something we've pretty much come up every episode, I want to say, like every show.
Pretty much every.
But there are indeed in the longer lines, because we have to figure out what we exactly want to do for Prestige Awards that is going to be worth it to have rewards for Prestige.
Yes, and keep in mind, Prestige is a bragging rights mechanic. It's not supposed to give you like strong gameplay advantages, but we have a couple of nice things planned for Prestige.
Yes. Don't you worry, it will be good. I saw someone asked about leaning. Also, no, we don't plan on adding leaning to the game. Unless that changed, but I don't think they are.
Prone and leaning are both mechanics at the moment we don't really want to have in the game because they encourage even more sitting, camping, etc. And we rather incentivize the players just being active and moving.
Let me see if we still got something. What is the legendary content coming? Yeah, that's something we're not going to show off yet. You'll see eventually. The silent wind field is too quiet. Can't tell where I get shot from, even at close range, 5 to 10 meters. And the shot, I suppose, sounds more like an arrow.
Yeah, we still have our audio guys look into the silenced weapons and also the crossbows, etc., playing with the distances. At the moment, I think both the crossbows and the silenced weapons have like an attenuation curve which is like roughly 50 meters or so. However, you really only hear like maybe halfway through that anything. Like the other stuff just gets drowned in the ambient. But we're still considering to push this a little bit further, just put a bit more decibel in. But the problem is that it's a like a really thin red line, because if we just make it too audible, then what's the point of a silencer? You just have a less damaging weapon that you can still kind of pinpoint very quickly.
Exactly.
And the point of a silenced weapon, and yes, technically it would be a suppressive weapon. Realism, we know, but we don't care. But it gives you the chance to kind of like trade damage for not being easy to be pinpointed by the other guys. So you have like the drop on them.
Okay, Flosen asks, what do we do versus cheaters? So we have Easy Anti-Cheat, which is our anti-cheating software and a program. And obviously they constantly check if someone is using cheats. We'll automatically ban them from the game. We'll also get a reporting system even on top of that very soon. And obviously it's constantly, I mean, even ourselves, we see and check if there are new like hacks coming up that we then, you know, can report to Easy Anti-Cheat if they haven't already done it themselves. So we do take cheating very seriously, and we do a lot about it and make sure that it is as cheat-free as possible. I think also with the dev screens that we recently added to give you guys a better idea of where shots coming from. I definitely think people now more realize, like, you know, you can get shot through a wall, which might seem strange in comparison to other games, but this is just how it works. So it makes a lot more sense. We're getting free updates, including weapons and more content. Are we sure we're living in 2018 anymore? Can we get more stealth traits? Moving faster while crouched, making less noise while walking, something like that.
Moving faster while crouched is actually funny, because originally Gatorlex was exactly that. In development, we had some issues with pulling this one off in an easy way. That's why we kind of changed it to be this water-based trait. We might come back to this, because we also thought it was actually a pretty good idea.
Let's see. Are we satisfied with 10 players per match? I would say yes, otherwise we wouldn't do it.
Yes.
But it's not just like per match, it's more also the fact, like, I know this kind of, I feel, ties to more players on the map, you know, type of thing. But the map at the moment is just not big enough for having more players. So
there's one important part. There's also another part, which is that, like, we also have AI cast on the map.
Exactly.
And AI cast also costs quite a lot in terms of performance, network, etc. So by us choosing to have a rich world, a living world, where you have AI populating it, you have animal attractors like the horses, etc. The world feels alive and not static and stale. That means you are kind of limited in how many people can experience it at a time, because like the data has to be like moved between these and updated, etc. So that's not saying we don't want more. It's just that there are certain technical limits which we are facing. We would need to overcome in order to increase it if you wanted to.
Yes. Can we get more, or can we have some death animation other than and jumping on my back?
We would like to add more. There was actually a good one in there. Why did you change damage on Mosin Nagant from 74 to 46? This is a very good point, because what this refers to is probably the in-game stats.
That's also not correct right now, right? Because that was something that someone asked, like, did we nerf the sparks?
Exactly. So there's a bit of confusion, and maybe we can use that stream also to clear that up with this question. It's a very good question for this one. When you see the changes to the stats in the shop, in the arsenal, etc., that doesn't mean we did any changes to the weapons. It means we changed how we display the actual data of these weapons. So what we did is we changed the rating behind it, basically like the scale on which these stats are being given, and we can rebalance the stats to make sure that the difference between the weapons as you compare them becomes a bit clearer. But this is just an abstraction. This has nothing to do with how the weapon actually behaves in-game. As you can see, for example, like when we go to 100, then we have a dynamite bundle which is like 100 plus, or you have the nitro which is 100 plus, or the big dynamite bundle is like 100 plus plus plus. It's just an abstract thing which just tells you this one is a bit more powerful even than the other one. Like 100 kind of means like it's very likely for you to be dead if you get hit by it. But it's more of an abstract comparative value rather than being in any way related to an in-game weapon, because we talked about this also in one of the previous streams. It's very hard to specify the exact damage of something, because there's so many factors to it. There is, on one hand, the type of the projectile. So what is the simulation of the projectile we have? Like, is it a pistol bullet which loses damage very quickly because there's not much propellant in there? So you want to use it over short range. So as it travels, it kind of bleeds damage. Then we have wall penetration, so that if you hit specific materials, depending on the material and depending on the number of successive hits, the damage drops off. For example, like a compact bullet or a shotgun shell can only do ever one penetration, while the long bullet can do more. And then obviously we have the body parts, like what are you exactly hitting? Is it the head? Is it the arm? Is it the legs? And those have additional multiplications on top. So it's very hard to come up with that exact number, like this weapon does exactly like this, because the weapons are maybe better in short range, maybe better on long range, maybe they keep their damage over a longer time, or maybe it's very effective actually to do body shots with this one, while the other one maybe it's more effective actually to only ever go for headshots. It really depends drastically from weapon to weapon, so that's why we're having such a hard time to really go into the shop or the arsenal and put an exact number in there. So they're comparative numbers, and they help you to kind of understand, is this weapon maybe worth more for me to choose it for my playstyle or not, compared to the other.
But it's not.
Will we get ducks? Maybe.
Maybe. I mean, we already have rubber ducks, so technically we have ducks.
Gotta feed the water devil somehow.
Let me see. So I saw something about this. Is I don't remember, but do you guys plan to keep the game as hardcore as it was, or do you want to change it to make it more appealing for the wider audience? So there is obviously something you have to understand, that as much as we want to keep the game very hardcore in the super hardcore niche and only focus on the very small group, truth is you can never keep a game up like that unless we would have, you know, unless we were Elon Musk and could send Teslas in the sky or in space. But
the thing is also on this one, it's a very important point. It's an early access game, which means there's new features coming online that we have on our roadmap that we've planned on having, like, you know, things like, for example, the dev screens. Like, this is stuff we want to have in the game for specific reasons, but we didn't have the capacity to put in right from the beginning.
Exactly.
Obviously, as we introduce these features, the game will change. There's two parts to it also. Like, this one part is the roadmap and what we plan on doing. The other one is the feedback in the community part, like how we are reacting on feedback, how we're seeing the game being actually played in practice, and what we want to do about it. Like mechanics like the boost, for example, is definitely something which we didn't plan on having initially, but came as a consequence of observing how people are playing the game, what the problems with the game are. For example, people not going in for the boss but rather camping, and therefore us reacting to this. So this is an organic process, and you guys are part of this process. And therefore sometimes it feels like, oh, they're removing all the hardcore features, but maybe sometimes the hardcore feature was just the lack of another feature that only comes online a little bit later, which definitely will change things. And again, this is where we're interacting with you guys. We're getting your feedback, we're gonna listen to it, we're gonna watch it, we see how it measures up against our plans and our wishes for the game, and come up with the best possible solution to move this forward. It's a very organic process.
Exactly.
And to be fair, this is also what kind of makes an early access thing. It's like this close interaction with the community, being able to just like see how things react, rather than just like releasing the game as a box product and then moving on to the next game. And this is a live thing, and we enjoy that so much. Just working closely, getting the feedback, and yes, it can sometimes be perceived as, oh, we're catering more to the mass market.
Exactly.
But it's not really the plan for that.
Exactly. And it's also like, I mean, obviously you can never please everyone as much as we wanted to. There are always people going to be like, I don't like this feature. Well, the other 10 million people love it, for example. Yeah. So we are trying to do our best, and like obviously with our own vision in mind as well, to come up with like new ideas or things to change, or like, for example, the boost, to come up with a new incentive for people to, you know, like go for the boss rather than camp outside, because I think there's always going to be something that people are going to be talking about as a main subject, because like we had camping, we had we had the nitros, now the hot topic, so there's always going to be things that we're going to talk about, but know that we try to do what's best for our game, and also what's best for you guys for your game, because it's a game for Mars both.
One thing which is also maybe just interesting to think about there for a second. So, for example, the last couple of patches, updates, I always confuse the words. We brought a couple of new, completely fresh weapons. We also brought a couple of variants to existing stuff, modifications of existing stuff, just like slight variations of it. I mean, this is not because we just want to go the cheap road and just like, just quickly just slap another Einstein on it. There's also a roadmap, and that roadmap has crafting as one of the next big things. And crafting will require content. We need things that can be crafted, things that can be modified. So as you can see that alongside releasing like completely new weapons like the crossbows, for example, throwing knives, putting in also a mix of these variations just gives us content for the crafting system. As we move our weapon unlocks, the main weapons will kind of remain in the unlock progression, but many of the variations that we're going to shift over to the crafting system. And for that to be meaningful, we need the content in that system. That's why we're going to release all of these sometimes smaller, sometimes bigger variations in order to have like some actual meat in the system before it is going live. There is no point in making a crafting system if you have 10 things to craft.
Exactly. And also I see some people asking for emotes, like gestures and stuff.
Dancing hunters? Really?
I just already imagine like lion dancing with country roads in the background. But then again, Fallout had that song, right?
The only thing I can say about that is if this is something you really, really enjoy, go to our feedback. Exactly, go to our feedback channels and post it there and see if it gets upvoted.
Yeah.
Which I hope it doesn't.
Exactly, but we got some questions, and I think this is a good last question to close the stream with. The monetization, what do we have plans for that? Well, at the moment, we don't have monetization besides just buy the game.
We talked about this before, right? We're in early access. The guys of you who have bought that game, you have given us money. With that money, we've promised to give you access to the game that is a work in progress right now, and we give you a roadmap of what we want this game to become. We don't have any plans right now to, in that process of early access, do anything with monetization.
And even if we eventually get monetization in the game, it will never be pay to win. Or, pay to win.
Has to be a given, yes.
Exactly. So you will never get an unfair advantage by buying yourself into weapons or whatever, but... At the moment, no plans for it, and we're just focusing on getting optimization, performance, and content your way.
Yes.
So I think this was another good stream. I hope you guys like new content, which will be on the test server hopefully next week. I think it was
early to mid, very likely.
Early to mid.
We have to see how it goes. Yeah.
But we hope you guys had a good time. If you missed it, we will be posting it online. You can rewatch everything on Mixer, YouTube, anywhere, Twitch. And definitely join her on the Discord, discord.gg/HuntShowdown, where we talk about everything, or find us on Twitter or YouTube, and Facebook at /HuntShowdown. So many places, and we will see you there. Have a good one.
All right, have a good one, guys. Thanks for tuning in.